Hello and ho ho ho! Merry Christmas everyone, and welcome to my final Wind in the Willows video for 2024. It's been quite a journey. I've looked at obviously episode reviews, I've looked at all the merchandise that I have and shared it with you all, and talked about things like videos, books, games, all sorts of things that have been released over the years celebrating this wonderful 1980s animated series. As always, I am celebrating the 40th anniversary of a particular episode, and for this final one, of course, we're celebrating the Yuletide Entertainment, which originally screened on ITV back in 1984, on Christmas Eve, in fact. So, of course, I'm putting this video out on Christmas Eve, 40 years later, and like I say, this is my final one looking at, well, I call it the merchandise of Wind in the Willows, but I'll be building up to this one because this one will reveal the top 5 items that I have in my collection. But strictly speaking, none of these are merchandise related. They're actually a bit more special than that. So of course, like any enthusiast of film or TV, it's always a dream to own things that are actually screen used, that are actually appeared on screen. And that is the case for a lot of these items, these last 5 items. So without any more ado, I'm just going to jump straight in. I'm going to do a countdown. So number 5 is a selection of items. So not just one item itself, but a selection of original props that actually appeared in the series. So these props were actually given to me on 2 occasions. The first was when I had work experience at Cosgrove Hall back in the year 2000. And I told everybody how much I absolutely loved the Wind in the Willows, and they were very generously giving me a few things from various boxes. And so obviously I was just in my element. This was, of course, 24 years ago. So yeah, I was still to do my degree in animation, and you know, I never knew I'd be working there a few years later. But on this occasion, I took home with me some very precious props that I've treasured to this day. And then the second occasion was when I worked at Cosgrove Hall, but in my last few days, when I was about to sadly be made redundant and then go on to work for other companies. But I asked them, you know, if any of these things are going to be thrown out or anything like that, I would of course treasure anything they can spare. And then the following day, they gave me a little box of just some more items from the Wind in the Willows. Of course, the majority of the props now are held by the Cosgrove Hall Films Archive at the Waterside in Manchester, which is a fantastic home for them. They do a great job at preserving the history of Cosgrove Hall. Yeah, that's of course where the majority of them should be. But I feel very lucky to at least own a selection of items. So yeah, I'll share a selection of those with you now. Okay, so here's that selection of props, and lovely little selection, isn't it? I mean, you probably recognise some of these items. So yeah, let me take you through them. So I'll start with this. This is a lovely little sort of garden ornament of Toad. Interestingly, though, we never actually saw this in his garden. For those who don't know, this is actually featured in only one episode, Fire at Toad Hall, in the scene where Toad is moving into Mole's home, and he tries to lower the huge statue of himself, the big bust, and it comes down and it smashes his furniture and this as well, and this is the first thing that smashes, and they would have replaced it with a broken version in pieces. So yeah, as far as I know anyway, I've never seen it in any other episode, so I believe it's just from that episode. But it is a lovely prop. Feel very privileged to have it. I'm not quite sure what it's made of. I believe it must be wood, very light wood. It's very lightweight. You can even see a little residue of blue tack that would have been used back in the day to stick it down. Got lovely sort of moss on the top there, fake moss that they would have used, fake grass. Little leaf that you can see in the episode, actually, that leaf is there. So yeah, when I first had my hands on this, it was this sort of closest thing at that point I ever been to actually feeling the puppets themselves. To actually feel Toad's head was quite something, you know. Let me tell you, I mean, you know, being such a fan of the series and loving those episodes so much, and then eventually just being face to face with an item from it and being able to sort of feel it, it's just hard to describe. Obviously so used to it now, but yeah, so that's a lovely sort of garden ornament toad there. Let's put it to the side for a minute. So next we have this chair. So you may recognise this from the later episodes, series 4 and 5. There were a range of these chairs in Toad Hall, in his library. And this is the one specifically made for Badger, because he had very short legs, and you can see here it's very low. The seat itself is very low, and it's very wide to accommodate Badger's broad behind. It's very lightweight, made of again a very light wood, beautifully done. Got some lovely carvings in this here, and varnished on top. And then you've got the fabric itself, sort of quilted. It's got a sort of a soft cushiony feel to it, to the bottom and the back there, and it's actually held together with very short nails. You can see here, I don't know if the light is picking those up, tiny little nails all around it. One or two are sticking out, and it's seen better days. It's a little bit warm, but overall I've really tried to look after all these props, take good care of them, and this is just a beautiful example of the furniture in Toad Hall. So there's the chair. Let's move on now to something I really love. It's probably my favourite, actually. So I distinctly remember being given this when I was on work experience. This is Toad's stepladder, also from his library. We see it again in a number of episodes in series 4 and 5. It's seen better days. It has had a few knocks over the years, a few chips. I've had it obviously a long time, and it survived. I mean, let's face it, many decades now. But if you look particularly in the episodes Midsummer Night's Disaster and Toad in Love, Toad actually uses it. He actually sort of wheels around on it a little bit, which is nice to see. And actually, if you look underneath here, there's a big magnet here, which kept the stepladder secure to the set. And then there's sort of perforated steel at the bottom of each step there, which would have allowed the puppet to walk up it. Which again he does in those episodes. So the feet would have been obviously on here, and very tiny magnets would have been underneath on each step to hold the feet in place. They're sort of tiny pill magnets. I'm surprised that bottom wasn't painted, but it looks like balsa wood. I believe that's probably what it was used, or at least a very thin plywood. And again, you've got the sort of similar detail to the chair, beautifully sort of carved all around there, and of course very Edwardian, very in keeping with everything else. So yeah, that's the stepladder. And let's bring in this very small object here. So this is one of Toad's champagne bottles. Now a lot of these would have been made, and I'm not quite sure what it's made of. I think maybe some sort of resin or something. It's very light. But yeah, not much to say about it really, other than it's a lovely little item. You've got sort of a hint of it being full inside. I think it was just colorized a certain way. I'm not an expert with how these things were made. I know some of the tricks of the trade, but yeah, some of them I'm still gobsmacked to this day by how much detail there was in this series at the time and for its time. You'll see it more in focus there. So yeah, one of Toad's champagne bottles. So let's bring in the snowman now. So this is very heavy. This was you may recognise it. It was featured in Winter Sports when the Hedgehog wins a prize for the Toad snowman. Toad is stood there. We don't know it's him until afterwards, where his eyes open in the snow and he collapses to the ground. When this was given to me, it was actually given in pieces, so I eventually glued it together. You can actually see very obvious join there, and another one on, I think, his hand around here. Oh yeah, his arm there. So it was in pieces, and his feet were off as well. Just because I think it was the way it was stored over for many years. This is very heavy, like I say. I think it's made of fiberglass, or very heavy fiberglass, or resin of some sort. And it's very yellowed, obviously, over the years. This would have been much whiter in its day. to give the depiction of snow. And it's got it was painted white, and then it had a coating of fake snow, whatever they used at the time. And you can see holes here in the hands that would have had the skis through, or the branches resembling the skis. It's lovely though, isn't it? Really nice. It's pretty much the size of the puppets, maybe slightly larger because, you know, considering the thickness of the snow that would have been on top of him. But I just love it. It's a lovely pose, and yeah, it's got all the detail with his goggles and his hat and all that. Yeah, I feel very, very lucky to have that. So let's move that to the side, and we'll go on to another model of Toad in the form of a garden ornament. So there are a number of these in the garden scenes of Toad Hall. Again, particularly in the later series, it's pretty hard to figure out which one this is, but I believe it's the one that we see in A Toad in Time, when he actually goes back or imagines he goes back to the times of Julius Caesar. And there's one of these in the corner as he arrives. I'm not going to put the footage on just because of copyright or that sort of thing, but if you look at that episode again, you look at that corner in the garden when he arrives, there's one of these there, and I believe it is this one. I think I've identified it from the marks here. A few chips here and there. Unfortunately, it's had a few knocks. Again, mostly from the storage. All of these, when the production ended, these were just stored in boxes, and like with all productions, some are sort of utilised and repurposed for other series, for productions and so on. And then, of course, a lot of them do survive, some in better shape than others. But again, very happy to have this. It's made of wood, as you can see there, but of course painted and textured to make it look like it's made of stone. It's got some weight to it, but stone would be much heavier, of course. So yeah, there's that. And then finally we're on to a couple of paintings and a section of the Toad Hall panelling. So let me just bring this one in first. This is probably a very familiar one. This was given to me during my work experience. Yeah, I was absolutely over sort of gobsmacked really when they said I can keep this, because this is one of the two paintings on one of the main walls of Toad Hall, with the staircase going down either side, and there's one of these on the wall either side, just above each section of that staircase. No idea what happened to the other one, where that is now. Maybe the archive have it, I don't know. But this is beautiful. I think these illustrations were done by Beverly Bush, although I'm not 100% sure. But look at the detail. I mean, it just looks like an old painting, doesn't it, with all the sort of cracks in here. I don't quite know how they did it, but yeah, beautifully done. It is starting to come away from the frame a little bit, sadly, so maybe I'll sort of fix that eventually. But again, very lightweight wooden frame there. And this is interesting here. Look, you've got a big R there, end wall, which makes sense. It was the painting on the right-hand side on that end wall. And on the opposite side, on the other wall, that's where you had the fireplace and other paintings and so on. And you can see bits of the wall that it was fastened to, almost cemented to, with all these bits left here, and also bits of blue tack as well. And there's even this old bit of wire, this bit of alley wire that's just left there. So yeah, really happy with it. Really feel privileged to own this. Certainly a high point in my collection. And then we move to another painting that was also from Toad Hall. This, as you can see, is without its frame. That didn't survive, sadly. But this was given to me when I left Cosgrove Hall. And this is a little bit different to the other one. That painting had a smooth surface. This one's got a very rough surface. All this cracking here was actually done right on top of this. And again, I don't quite know how it was done, but you can almost see in the light there the texture of that. Look at that, all those cracks that have purposely been done. I mean, this really looks like of its time, doesn't it? An old painting. So yeah, look out for it. I mean, this is in many episodes. I would say to the sort of one of the sides of Toad Hall by one of the doors, the side doors, sort of to the side of the bay window area. I don't know if I'm describing it very well, but do look out for it, and you would see it. And oh, there we go. It says there, look, in the alcove, right? Yeah, that makes sense. Look at this, we can see the actual board that they used here, the braided board. Frisk. It's painting straight on top of that. Yeah, lovely, lovely item. Again, sad, shame that it didn't. We haven't got its frame there, but lovely to have it all the same. And then finally, just want to share with you this. For all I know, this is probably the last remaining section of the Toad Hall wall. So we see plenty of this wall all around the Toad Hall set. And they gave me this, said, "Oh, you can have a section of wall that this was found." Who knows if there's more of it around somewhere, but I don't know if the archive have any. Who knows if the sets have survived? But it's very lightweight, and it isn't what it looks like. Of course, it's made to look like old wooden panelling, but in fact, it's just vacuum formed plastic. That's all it is. Terry Brown, actually, the designer of the series, brought in the vacuum forming machine as they were making the series, or the film rather, and it made everything much more efficient. They made things very quickly, and they were able to, obviously, once you had the mould, make more and more of them. So it made total sense for this sort of thing, for this panelling of Toad Hall. So yeah, feel very lucky to have that. So there we go, selection of props there from the series. Okay, so moving on from original props that were given to me to original props that I actually bought and paid for. This is of course very rare because very few items actually get sold at auctions and that sort of thing. But this is something that came up a while back and I had to seize the opportunity. So these are actually the original gates from Toad Hall. They didn't appear in that many episodes, only a few. But they're probably best remembered from Winter Sports from Series 2 when Toad sings Shoosh Boomer and bursts through them in one quick shot. I bought these framed and they look absolutely beautiful, and I'll share them with you now. Okay, so these are the actual gates from Toad Hall. So as I said, they're from a few episodes, they weren't in that many, but particularly they're best known for Winter Sports. So Toad of course bursts through the gates as he's singing Shoosh Boomer, and at that point of course they were covered in snow, completely covered, and actually there's still a little bit of residue of snow that can be seen on these gates. They didn't quite clear it all off, even though it was in a few subsequent episodes without snow. The condition of them aren't the best, but I think they are in the condition they were when production ended. I have at least seen some photos where you can see them on display in one or two exhibitions, and they are in this condition. So I'm not too worried about that. But I was able to buy them in this beautiful frame. That's how they came, with this lovely sort of border showing some images from Winter Sports. We've got the typeface, the more modern typeface, the Wind and the Willows at the top there, but that doesn't bother me so much. It's just really lovely to own these gates, and yeah, not much more to say really. I think they're made from wood mostly, but again made to look like something completely different, in this case metal, and they've got some lovely details to them, and I'm really privileged to own them. And they're quite large, as you can see, quite big. There's my hand span there, quite large. You can imagine how big the set would have been. The entrance to Toad Hall. I'm quite surprised that we didn't see this more often than we did, bearing in mind they are actually the gates of Toad Hall. But yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, like I say, really happy to own these gates. Okay, so now we're into the top three, and these items are very, very unique and special. So the number three, it's basically three items in one that I was able to acquire as a set. There was a eBay auction quite a number of years back. It was a house clearance, and it was an item that belonged to somebody who was connected with the series Wind and the Willows and some other Cosgrove Hall productions. And there was some original props sold, so I was obviously keeping a close eye on them. I didn't have a lot of spare money to spend, so it was, I was sort of kicking myself thinking, oh, I really want these items. And then something came up that I knew I had to do all I could to try and get. Luckily I did win the eBay auction on this, and I am truly blessed to own this. Like I say, it's three items. Two of them are screen used, one isn't, but one of them in particular is so near and dear to my heart. I always dreamt of owning it, and I feel so lucky and privileged to own it. So without any further ado, let's look at them. Okay, so I'm going to show you these three pictures that I mentioned. So this is probably the one that I was least excited about, but very, very happy to have it. Don't get me wrong, all the same. But this, as you can see, is a picture that's very reminiscent of the opening of the film. So that first image that we see when the title, The Wind in the Willows, appears. At the time I thought, oh wow, is it the screen used version? Is it the actual image they use in the film? And when I compared it, unfortunately I found it wasn't. It's just a variation of it. They obviously would have taken a few of them and then eventually went with one of them. So this is just an example of it, but a lovely image all the same. I mean, it's so iconic in a way, isn't it? You know, that beautiful sort of tree hanging down, the willow tree in the river, and you've got the gate in the distance there. And of course in the film the camera zooms into that gate and eventually we end up at Mole End. But what's really interesting about this is the title, the font of The Wind in the Willows. So it's obviously very different to the one that we ended up with, but it's not one that we haven't seen before. If you go back to my jigsaw puzzles video, you'll see that the font on those jigsaws is exactly this font, which is really interesting. So I think that this was created originally, and everyone was thinking this was the font they were going to go with, and for whatever reason they decided to change it. I'm glad they did, to be honest. I really love that final typeface that they went with. Although arguably this is probably a little bit more legible, you can read it a bit more easily. But I think, you know, the other feels more classy, doesn't it, somehow? But this one isn't a million miles off, and you've got the two L's in Willows there, one overlapping over the other and the small O floating above them. Yeah, it's quite different, the one they went with in the end. It's basically a sheet of acetate, so the title is painted with white paint on top of that. And that's layered on top of the photo. The frame itself I actually found in a charity shop. It's not an absolute perfect fit, but I thought it was very appropriate for it. A lovely golden frame, and it had that little gap in the bottom there, so I just put by Kenneth Graham in there. So yeah, so that's one of the items that came in this set that I bought. Now we'll move on to item number 2. Okay, so you may recognise this. So this is the original illustrated piece as seen in every episode of Series 5, otherwise known as Oh Mr. Toad. So we've got the original illustration itself, and in the middle we've got the photo of Toad Hall. And if you remember, with each episode, the title of the episode appears on screen on top of this, and then the camera slowly zooms into Toad's bedroom, which is the lit up window there. This is obviously very, very special to actually own the original painted piece, not a print. Prints of these were never even available. It is the one and only. So very, very privileged to have this. So let's zoom in and look at some of the detail. Okay, so I've got this in this frame. Again, I framed it myself. I've got a framing company to do it, so it's a bit hard to avoid my reflection, but I'll just go into some of the detail here. So of course we only see so much of the detail in the episodes themselves, not being in high definition, at least not at the moment. But isn't this beautiful? I mean, this is just gorgeous. Of course, painted by the wonderful one and only Beverly Bush. Look at Ratty's home there with the willow trees, isn't that lovely? Beautiful reflections in the water here, and as we move along, got all the countryside there. You've got other trees, different kinds of trees, more willow trees there on the end, and just a little detail, even like the fences at the back there. Look at that, lovely fence posts, just beautiful. As we come up here, you see leaves and flowers, absolutely gorgeous. And then on the other side, similar there with the leaves and flowers, really nice. And what's lovely as well is they've got this sort of border here, this sort of yellowish painted border that complements the actual border around the photographic image here. And look at that sort of gold leaf effect, this gold trimming here that you have framing and separating the photo from the illustration, just like a real Edwardian photo album. Absolutely gorgeous. And these illustrations always fascinated me. I always wondered what happened to them. The Cosgrove Hall archive actually have a number of them from the earlier series, and they're absolutely gorgeous. They really are. They're beautiful. And this one, of course, is unique in the sense that it's a large piece. For the series, it was a sort of 2-page A4 sized sort of illustrations opening up like a book. And Beverly Bush told me that, that's the size that they were. But this one, of course, is larger because it had to fill the whole screen. The camera didn't zoom in and around this. We just got the whole image on screen to introduce each episode. So yeah, very, very privileged to own this. Absolutely beautiful. But like I say, this came as a set. It sold to me basically 3 pictures in one. And while I love this one and the previous one, the next one I'm about to show you is the reason I wanted to buy this set, or at least try my best to win the auction. Here we go then. And here we are, the one and only title page of the series. I was amazed when I saw that this was being made available, and like I said before, I always dreamt of owning this. I've always considered this image absolutely beautiful, just stunning. Just those 4 characters in those iconic poses. It's so classy with the wind and the willows in the middle there, the beautiful illustrations around it, and it's so iconic, at least to me. I mean, when you think the amount of times we all saw this on the screen for each episode, and the way we were introduced to the characters, just like this, the camera would zoom in like this, look at the titles like that, and then we go up to Toad, and then all the others and so on. So let me just say first of all that this actually looks a little bit different to the original 4 series, and that's because they touched it up for the 5th series. So when it was originally shown as Oh Mr. Toad, we never saw this image in that 5th series. It was just the Oh Mr. Toad artwork, and then it went to the piece of artwork I just showed you for the episode title. But when it was sold internationally as simply the 5th series of The Wind and the Willows, they replaced that Mr. Toad, Oh Mr. Toad artwork with this. And this is the version now that we have available on home video, on DVD. And the differences that they made were just sort of touches up of paint here and there, most notably the yellowish border that we have here, complementing the feel of the photo album and complementing the previous piece of artwork that we saw. But also they added other bits here and there. So for example, around the bird here, there's an extension of the branches here, along here and here, and there's more of a wash of brown paint around here. That wash is also applied sort of around here as well, between Toad and Badger and between Ratty and Mole here. So that's one of the main differences as well. In terms of detail with the plants, nothing seems to be added with that. It's just those branches really. I think the reason they did it is they wanted to make it a bit more sort of I don't know, sort of appealing and sort of aesthetically more pleasing as an image, because I don't know, it just had to feel more sort of, I guess, a little updated. They wanted to spruce it up a bit. It just feels more framed, doesn't it? Particularly with this border, it just feels more sort of I don't know, just a piece of artwork, and certainly a piece of artwork you can hang on your wall, which indeed I have. And of course, like with the others, I added the frame later, made sure I put it in UV protection glass. And yeah, I don't know what else to say other than I feel so privileged to own this. I'm taking great care of it. I adore it, will always treasure it. Let's just zoom in again to the photos. Many years ago I was able to get a print of this illustration directly from, at the time, the copyright holders of Wind and the Willows, which was Pearson TV. And they sent me a lovely sort of digital image of it, but with different poses, different photos of the characters. And that's the version we see quite often at the back of all the VHS videos that they re-released in the 90s. It did have this image on the back, but with different poses for the puppets. I always longed for even just a print of this with these poses, because to me, they're just so iconic. They're the ones that we see in the episodes. But then to actually have the chance of owning the original yeah, you can see why this is so special to me, so high up on my list. I am so lucky to own this. And there we have it. Okay, so number 2. So this I've sort of posted images of, I think, here and there in the past, but I've never really discussed it in detail. This item actually combines an original prop, again that I was able to purchase at one point, and then personalise it, and then add something very special on top of that. So it's quite a package in one. I absolutely adore it. It means a great deal to me, and it takes pride of place in our living room at home. So let's just have a look. Okay, well, that Wind in the Willows title artwork would have taken second place if it wasn't for this. This slightly overtakes it because it's got so much going on. So what you're looking at here is basically a window box display that I created myself, which originally began with this original prop in the middle here of Toad's telescope. So you may of course recognise this from the episode Toad Astronomer from Series 3. And I was able to acquire this telescope. It was made available for sale. Originally sold to someone else, and then it was resold again. And I was lucky enough to be able to afford to buy it at the time. But when I bought it, I thought it deserves something better than just sitting on a shelf alongside the other props that I already had. To me, it was a very special prop because it's got moving parts on it. It just looks beautiful. It's golden. And I was just thinking, what can I do to display this a bit differently? And then I looked at the episode again and I thought, well, I know, why don't I create a window box? Why don't I find an actual frame of the episode and print it to scale, so that it's to scale with the telescope, and recreate the scene almost, so that from a distance it looks like I've got the whole setup. And I'm really pleased with it. It worked. It took some work, but yeah, let me talk you through it. So we've got the telescope itself. So I don't know if you can see there, it's got moving parts. I try not to touch it so much because it's obviously so delicate, but it is absolutely beautiful. It's the most stunning original prop that I own. And then of course we've got Mr. Toad himself next to him. Now this I just basically printed in layers. It's got that 3D effect where you do multiple layers and try to give it a bit of a three-dimensional quality, so that from a distance his arm here feels a little bit closer to us than his body. His collar stands out a little bit, and then his other arm is back further than that. And it just works. It gives it that sort of lovely 3D quality. And I carefully position it so that the hand is resting behind the telescope there. I built the roof out of basically a slope of plywood that you can see here, and then all these tiles were individually printed as one to begin with, and then cut out individually and sort of stuck down a slant, so that again they've got that 3D quality. Even this leaf that appeared in the episode came there. Got a little title card there that actually came with the prop because it originally featured in one or two exhibitions. We got the sort of chimneys from Toad Hall here, standing below and behind the slope rather there. And there we have it. And I painted the back of this window box that I'd already bought. I found it online. It was the perfect size. You can buy these boxes in different sizes, but this was, I think, their largest one. And it just works. The scale absolutely came together, and I was so pleased with it. But there are some other things going on with this as well. You probably already noticed the autograph of David Jason. So yes, he was able to sign this. I met him just before the pandemic hit. I think it was 2021, was it? And it was at this Only Fools and Horses, well, David Jason and Friends convention, as it was called, and he was gobsmacked when I took this to him. And he heard all about how I loved the series and got to work for Cosgrove Hall as a result, and would he sign it and all that, and he was only too happy to. And it's kind of the icing on the cake, and it's what makes this sit in that number 2 position, having his autograph on that. And he just thought it was a lovely bit of memorabilia, and that was just an absolute thrill to meet him and for him to see this. But yeah, there are some other bits and pieces in this. If I just close this again, so that closes like that, it actually comes with lights. I thought I'd light it up because, well, why not? So if I press this button on this remote here, it gives it that lovely sort of moonlight quality. And if you want moonlight, you've got it with the little mini moon there. If you can just see that, there's it off and there it is on. There we go. And that's just a little mini torch that I built into the side. And there's more even. I decided to put stars. I thought it has to be a starry night, so if I just turn the stars on, there you go, if you can see those. And if I just bring the camera in position, you should be able to see that you can count 13 stars there. And it's actually a constellation. It's the constellation of Virgo, which is special to me because that's my dad's star sign, Virgo. He was born in August, end of August. And my dad particularly has always loved this episode and one or two others. He loves the sort of more scientific episodes. Yeah, so it's quite special to me to try and get a meaningful constellation there. And these stars were actually put in after David Jason signed it. Everything else was in situ. But I wanted to very carefully put these stars in. And they're actually taken from one of those old Christmas decorations when you have LED lights. I salvaged one of those, got the LED lights out and wired it all very carefully, made tiny holes. And you can see how careful I had to be to go around this autograph, not to ruin it. There's one star in the middle of the J for Jason there that I put in, but it was the only way to make it work. And you can see how carefully positioned these stars are there. They're right up to the chimneys there, but they are absolutely the right distance apart for the scale to work. There's even one star, if you stand in a certain position, that's sort of creeping through the gap of the telescope there. So I was so chuffed that I was able to make it work as a constellation and not just random stars. So, just when you thought that wasn't enough, or that was enough rather, there's more. There's sound. I've got a little button to the side and I'll just press it now and you'll be able to hear some audio from the actual episode. So there you go. So just showing you around the side there, I've got some photos there of when I met David Jason. And I've got even some audio that was captured from that. The button for the episode there, the torch light switch, photos that it's based on there. So there's the actual still, the frame from the episode there that it's taken from. There's another one there, all the moonlight setting. And there's all the USBs for the lights on the top there. Switch for the stars there. And a handle. Handy little handle if I want to carry it about. But I do keep it on the wall, pride of place in our living room at home. So there we have it. Really, really pleased with this. It's obviously very, very, very special to me, which is why it's so high up on my list. But it didn't quite make number one. And now you're about to see why. Okay, well, the time has come to reveal my number one item in my entire collection. The items I just showed you are very, very high on the list anyway. They obviously mean a heck of a lot to me. All those original props and the telescope, the gates, and of course that beautiful title artwork. They are very, very special. But one item I have just about tops all of those. Not so much because of its screen use, because it actually isn't. It's just by its sheer size. Some of you might have seen images of this floating around the internet at one point, and I was lucky enough to eventually acquire it. I just had to have it if there was a way to have it, and thankfully the chap who owned it agreed to sell it to me, and now he takes pride of place in my home. Ladies and gentlemen, please meet Mr. Toad himself. A life-size model of Mr. Toad. This was made for an exhibition in the 90s animation world originally, I believe. I don't think it was used anywhere else, although I'm not totally sure of that. It might have been. I don't know if there is more than one, but I'm pretty certain this is the only one. He's made of fiberglass, very, very solid, very heavy. He has a fabric costume, so you can see here, sort of quite a thick fabric. I don't know what it is, but it's very thick. He's got a white shirt underneath, not a complete shirt, just like the collar section. He's got his little bow tie there. He didn't come with a pocket watch. I actually added that. I thought he absolutely needed his pocket watch. But he is absolutely stunning and quite big. I had to really convince my wife on this one. He just stands in our hallway, as you can see. And he has his arm up here. So he's got his arm raised like this in quite a nice pose. The pose itself is actually based loosely on Barry Purvis' original pose of Mr. Toad. It's not quite as sort of stylistic and classy as that pose, but it's pretty close. He's got his other hand sort of resting here, sort of with his thumb down like that, and he's got his shoes there. The base I actually added is actually fake grass that I used, AstroTurf. Originally it had hay or straw, so I think it must have been in some other exhibition. I just don't know what. But I cut this AstroTurf to fit on the base here, and he takes pride of place. So I actually had to wash him a little bit. He wasn't the cleanest, but considering he's so old, I think he's in pretty good nick. But there's more. There's actually another addition to this, which I shall demonstrate now by just flicking a switch here and have a little listen.
Please leave the tip at the front door as you go out. Ah, thank you.
So, that wasn't AI, that was Sir David Jason himself. Not the first time I met him. I actually met him again just over a year ago now, so November 2023, in a voice recording session. And it's for this special passion project, which I'm not going to reveal any more about now. But he did record that special message. He didn't quite know what it was for, but he agreed to do it at the end of our session. So he mentioned my name, my wife's name, my two daughters, and I've now installed it into this Toad. I'm so pleased with it. It was actually my wife's idea to include sound on this thing. And before we even got that quote from Sir David himself, I've already put loads and loads of Toad quotes into this. So every time somebody walks past, there's a little motion sensor on the wall over here. As they walk past, he will come out with another quote because there's a speaker in his mouth. And just if you can see it in there, a little speaker. Pretty mad, pretty insane. It's not the sort of thing you'd have in your home, is it? But it brings nothing but joy and smiles to everyone who comes in here. And you never know what he's going to say. You can put it on random. I just have it all in order. Because, you know, there are so many of them. So yeah, there we go. That's my number one item, and I'm sure you can see why. It's a huge item, kind of the pinnacle of my Wind in the Willows collecting. So there we have it, my top 5 items or collections of items, and I'm sure you can see why they're so special to me. And it doesn't get more ultimate than a giant life-size Toad, does it? So there we are, and yeah, I think my Wind in the Willows collecting days, I wouldn't say they're necessarily over, but I feel I've reached the pinnacle now with a giant Toad. And of course it continues to mean, you know, a great deal to me. I absolutely adore it, as I'm sure you gathered by now. But of course I do have other interests as well. So I'm not actively seeking things out as near as much as I used to. There are of course items out there that I'm aware of, particularly items of merchandise that I know do exist but are incredibly rare, very hard to find. And maybe one day I will, but yeah, if I don't, it's not the end of the world, you know. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to share this with everybody. I very much value the comments I do apologise though that it does sometimes take me a while to get back to people. I am just very busy. I'm a family man. I've got lots going on. I travel for work and all sorts. But I wanted to make time to do these videos because it's a series, of course, I care about a lot. It's a collection that I care about a lot, and I've just wanted to share it with everybody and anyone who's interested. So I know there are a lot of other enthusiasts out there who love this series as well, and it's just an honour to be able to share my memories and thoughts with everybody. Of course, I did get to work for Cosgrove Hall, so I was there for a very special 5 years. And I am working on a book on Cosgrove Hall. I am getting there. It has been a long time coming. I know people are eager to read it. I am as well. I am almost there, to be honest. It was meant to be finished by this Christmas, but you know, it's just been incredibly difficult to fit it in with everything else going on in my life. But I will get there. And of course, there is also that special project happening with Sir David Jason. I can't reveal any more on it at this point, but all I'll say is it is pretty special, and it will be slow at happening because it is a passion project, and the guy I'm working with on it, he's busy as well. But we will chip away at it, and hopefully we can reveal more at some point soon. But for now, I just want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year as we look towards 2025. And as we move past the 40th anniversary of the first series of The Wind in the Willows, of course, next year we'll be celebrating the anniversary of the second series of The Wind in the Willows. And I hope that it will be reintroduced to new generations, especially with the new box set, the DVD box set brought out again. And it's lovely that it's made available to people again. So, yeah. Here's to The Wind in the Willows. Here's to, again, a very Merry Christmas to everybody and a Happy New Year. And I will get back to comments as soon as possible. I promise that. So thanks to everybody for watching. Thank you for subscribing. I'm not saying there won't be more videos in the future, but for now, I'm going to call it a bit of a day on The Wind in the Willows, at least for now. So thank you, everybody, and all the very best.